This hadith is a warning against simply spreading information without verifying it. And this is a principle we see in the Quran and in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And how easy has it become in the times that we're living in today for information to spread without it being verified. How many times people will make tweets, posts, will spread things on WhatsApp, people will fabricate videos, will cut videos out and make a whole story about a person, and it will be spread around and people will believe it. There's so many times I've personally seen where a 1 minute clip or a 2 minute clip will be spread around and you will be convinced this person is a'udhu billah, Allahu musta'an, look at what they're saying. But when you actually search and actually do your homework and find out what the real story is and you see the full video, you'll find out that the whole thing is fabricated. They might have cut clips from a different place, from different parts, and put it together, and they just edited the whole thing, and the person was actually saying something that is correct, but because people wanted to shame them or whatever it might be, and fabricate and make a lie about them, they completely fabricate a video about them, and everybody's spreading it. People don't even verify. They get a video message on their phone, they watch it, a'udhu billah, they spread it to a group they're in, 100 people. The other one spreads it again. No verification, nothing. That's not the way the Muslim is supposed to be, right? Especially when it comes to talking about people now, right? And it's dealing with people's honor and people's status and people's reputation. You can't simply just spread the rumor and keep it going. That's what society pushes, right? We live in this tabloid society where it's all about exposing people and, did you hear what happened to so-and-so? Did you hear what happened to this individual, this athlete, this celebrity, this politician, this person in the community? And people are just spreading it without no verification, right? That happens online. That happens in person. Somebody comes to you and they tell you something in confidence, in private, between you and them, and then the person goes to another person and says, "Ya akhi, I have something to tell you, but it's a secret thing. Keep it between us." You've already told the person. How do you know this person is going to hold on to it? You couldn't even hold on to it yourself. You couldn't even keep the secret from the person telling you. He told you keep it between us, and you here telling them, "Ya akhi, khaliha bayni wa baynak," and you tell him, let it stay between us, and you're telling him as well. The whole community knows that. It's a done deal. Everybody knows about that. It's out. It's out of the bag now, right? No, there's that sense of being diligent is not there anymore, right? So everything you hear, you want to pass it on. Right? And there's some people, Allah is, it's an ibtila. Some people are just like that. They just want to be known to be the person that is the report, right? Spreading the news. There are people on social media who are actually famous for that. Right? They are known to be, they're the breaking news person. If I want breaking news, I'm going on Twitter to find so-and-so. Because they're always bringing hot new takes every single time. Have they verified it? Is it true? Is it not? Allahu A'lam. And many times it might be that the reality of what they're saying is the opposite. The reality of the situation is the complete opposite of what they're spreading. And you guys know what I'm talking about, because it's a reality that we're living in. كَفَى بِالْمَرْءِ كَذِبًا أَن يُحَدِّثَ بِكُلِّ مَا سَمِعَ. The Prophet ﷺ said, it is sufficient, or it is enough for a man to prove himself a kadhab and a liar when he goes on spreading and narrating every single thing that he hears. So from the tarbiyah of the Muslim is that you have to be somebody that verifies. يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِن جَاءَكُمْ فَاسِقٌ بِنَبَإٍ فَتَبَيَّنُوا فَتَثَبَّتُوا. You have to verify and make sure that this is actually thabit and actually correct. Or else you're going to be just spreading lies and you're part of spreading the rumor mill, right? That's what they call it even online. The rumor mill, right? It's an entire machine that just keeps on moving rumors. We've embraced it, right? The rumor mill is normally used more often as a sports terminology in sports news, but it's with everything, to even regular news. On the rumor mill today, and they're bringing all these things, and 90% of it might not even be true. And we've normalized it, and it's part of our psyche now. Wallahu al-musta'an.
What is your message to Western human rights groups, to President Obama,
respect,
to lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people?
Respect African societies and their values. If you don't agree, you just keep quiet. Let's manage our society the way we see. If we are wrong, we shall find out by ourselves. Just the way we don't interfere with yours.
Do you personally dislike homosexuals?
Of course, they are disgusting. What sort of people are they? How can you go? I never knew what they were doing. That's how I've been told recently that what they do is terrible, disgusting. But I was ready to ignore that if there was proof that that's how he's born, abnormal. But now the proof is not there.
You studied your history, and you did not take over this country by singing "We Shall Overcome." You did not gain control of the world like you have it now by dealing fairly with a man and keeping your word. You're treaty breakers, you're liars, you're thieves, you rape entire continents and races of people. Then you wonder why these very people don't have any confidence or trust in you. Your religion means nothing. Your law is a farce, and we see it every day. You demonstrated it in Alabama, and I can say you because you're part of the whole system. You profit from it. In fact, you make your living from it. You couldn't walk around and talk to people, stand up in your pulpit on Sunday and preach nice little songs and say, now we're going to give thanks to the Lord for he is good and old Jesus be among us. As far as we're concerned, your Jesus is contaminated, just like everything else you tried to force upon us is contaminated. Well, so you can have him. And here's what I'll say. I wish you would follow Jesus like we followed him. Because if you did that, then we'd be in charge tomorrow.
Salaam Alaikum. Mr. Moderator, our distinguished guests, brothers and sisters, our friends and our enemies.
Bismillah wa salatu wa salam Rasulullah wa ba'd. In the name of Allah, and may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon his last and final messenger. As to what follows, family, friends, foes, haters, and hateettes, welcome back to the Feachaz. I greet you all in peace and love with no hatred in my heart. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So before we begin, please please subscribe and please share. As you know, we got a lot of haters up in here, and we have some breaking news coming out of the Middle East, and we are going to tie this in on why this affects the Black grassroots. This is global news, and it's very important news, and it will have large implications on daily life, and we're going to tie it in on why that is. Okay, so like, subscribe, share, hit me up on Patreon, and let's get down to the nitty-gritty. So as you can tell by the title, and some of you may or may not have heard, but Saudi Arabia has been in negotiations, diplomatic negotiations with Iran, which have been mediated by China, and they have come to some sort of agreement, which they announced today. Okay, and before we get into that, we need to build up on what we want to say first. So there are a couple of things that are going on internationally, particularly with Muslim countries. And there is a push to de-Islamify Muslim countries, or to essentially make Islam some sort of separate entity, like a church and state entity with Muslim countries, sort of like the European model, where you have your religion, which is separate, totally separate from the affairs of the government. And in Islam, we understand that Islam is actually, it's supposed to be part and parcel, going together with leadership, with government, in cooperation, right? And it doesn't necessarily work like that all the time throughout Islamic history, as we know. However, what we are seeing in our time is this generation of expats who went and studied overseas. They're coming back with these new grand ideas, and the obstacle that's in their way essentially is Islam. So they're trying to de-Islamify their countries. And with Saudi Arabia, nobody has been more aggressive in modern times than we could say Mohammed bin Salman. Very, very aggressive in trying to de-Islamify Saudi Arabia and make it more European, Western, Kafir, non-Muslim, white people friendly. Okay? So there are also some geopolitical issues and obstacles within the Middle East as well, which have been also very well publicized. So before we get into that, we want to show you first what this deal is. Let me just put it up here. 1 second here. Let me just share this. 1 second, y'all. Okay, so this is from Al Jazeera. Okay. Iran and Saudi Arabia agreed to restore relations. The regional rivals are expected to reopen embassies within 2 months as they reestablish ties and security agreement after Beijing talks. Iran and Saudi Arabia have agreed to reestablish diplomatic relations and reopen their embassies within 2 months, according to Iranian and Saudi state media. The agreement has reached on Friday during talks in Beijing. Iranian state media posted images and video of Ali Shemkhani, Secretary of the Supreme National Security Muslim Security Council in Iran, with Saudi National Security Advisor Mossad bin Mohammed Al-Aiban and Wang Yi, China's most senior diplomat. After implementing the decision, the foreign ministers of both nations will meet to prepare for an exchange of ambassadors. Iranian state television said. In the footage aired by Iranian media, Wang offered a wholehearted congratulations on the two countries' wisdom. Both sides have displayed sincerity, he said. China fully supports this agreement. The Saudi press agency confirmed the agreement when it also published the joint statement from Saudi Arabia and Iran, which said the two countries had agreed to respect state sovereignty and not interfere with each other's internal affairs. So this right here is kind of eluding, if I had to guess, this is alluding to the situation that's happening in Yemen right now. That's what they're really talking about. This war in Yemen. As you know, this situation in Yemen is right at the border of Saudi Arabia. And Iran has its foothold within the Yemenis with the Houthis. And in recently, what we have seen with Israel, you got to remember, Israel, they are a nuclear power. They have the best trained military in the Middle East. And they have been extending their reach outside of Israel. Their military operations have extended outside of Israel. And all of this was possible because these Gulf countries have decided to normalize relations with Israel, which essentially gave them the green light, predictably so, to up their extermination operations of Palestinians and their military operations outside of Israel. Well, what also happened is that Israel has not toned down their rhetoric at all. So if you can see here, let me just stop sharing this. I'm going to show you all this. Don't worry, I'm going to tie it to the black residents. Don't worry, y'all, because this is very important on many levels. So let me just tie this in 1 second, y'all. Syria just suffered a devastating earthquake, but Israeli bombing does not stop. Even though Syria suffered a devastating earthquake, the Israeli bombing did not stop. When the earthquake happened, Turkey and Saudi Arabia had strained relations. But when the earthquake happened, Saudi Arabia sent Turkey $2 billion. And Israel sent Syria bombs. Okay? Israel attacks on Syria even as Syria struggles with the aftermath of February 6th earthquake, in which over 5,800 were killed. Thousands of Syrians took to the streets on Monday, February 20th, to protest against repeated Israeli aggression directed at the country. Protesters also chanted slogans against the unilateral coercive measures, sanctions imposed against Syria by the U.S. and its allies. The Syrian Arab News Agency reported. At least 5 Syrians were killed and 15 wounded when missiles fired by Israeli warplanes landed inside the densely populated Kafr Susa neighborhood in the capital Damascus on Sunday. February 19th, according to Sana, all but one of those people killed were civilians. The Syrian military claimed that its air defense had intercepted some Israeli missiles. And they always say stuff like that. We know this, we understand this, right? Israel has a very long history of using American-made weapons to punitively attack Palestinians and now Syrians, and they have been incredibly upping their rhetoric against the Palestinians much more since they got in that alt-right government. The alt-right government and this alt-right movement, which Muslims are supporting. These are the results of supporting such things. Muslims are supporting alt-right governments internationally. And these are the results of supporting such things, such governments. But anyways, the point is that now we have this diplomatic agreement reached between Saudi Arabia and Iran. And China was the one that brokered this deal. And throughout all of this, the elephant that is not in the room is who? Somebody put it in the chat, please. Who is the elephant that is not in the room? Somebody put it in the chat. So I just want to see if y'all know where I'm going with this. Who is the elephant that is not in the room? You have China moderating a diplomatic deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia. But who is conspicuously missing from this picture? Thank you, Susatika. It's America. America is missing. And mind you, both Saudi Arabia and Iran just recently announced this deal, which means they must have been in talks for quite some time, because you just don't go to Beijing one day, right, and say, you know what? I think I'm going to make peace with my decades-long enemy, my Cold War enemy in Beijing somewhere. That's not how politics works. This had to have been done in secret over some period of time to avoid interference from those elephants who are conspicuously missing from the room, which is, as Tika stated, America. So let's keep reading this article. Okay. The statement also said Riyadh and Tehran had agreed to activate security cooperation agreement signed in 2001. Okay. Riyadh, Tehran, and Beijing expressed their keenness to exert all efforts toward enhancing regional and international peace and security. This is what I said this was about. If you look at Saudi Arabia, let me just try to find something here. I'm trying to find a map for y'all so y'all can see for yourself. Okay? 1 second. Let me show y'all the Middle East and what's going on. One second, y'all. Try to find a map here for you. Look here. This is Saudi Arabia. Okay, let me just try to blow it up. So y'all can see. All right. This whole region between Egypt and Iran, that's considered what they call the Middle East, okay? They call that the Middle East. Saudi Arabia, if you look to the south, you have Yemen, okay? If you look to the north, you have Iraq. If you look to the east, you have Iran. So you can even say Iraq is a little bit northeast, right? Depending on where you are in Saudi. Okay, so if you're in the Mecca region or even Medina region, Iraq is going to be like more northeast. But geographically, you could say northeast. You could say Iran is east, right? And then you have across the Red Sea, you have Eritrea, you have Ethiopia, you have Djibouti, you have Somalia. Saudi Arabia is engulfed, totally surrounded in war-torn countries. And what all these countries have in common are U.S. military weapons. That's what they all have in common. If you look at Yemen, why was that country destabilized? It was destabilized through the Arab Spring. Why was Egypt destabilized? How did America get Sisi in power? Through the Arab Spring. If you look at Iraq, how were they destabilized? They were destabilized through America coming to save Saudi from their own creation, Saddam Hussein. How was Syria destabilized? Syria is destabilized again through the Arab Spring. The Arab Spring was a Facebook op. Believe it or not, it was a Facebook op, a very cheap military operation to destabilize these regions. Very cheap. Can you imagine entire countries brought down by Facebook? Iran has had a presence in Yemen since even when I was there. And the Yemenis were never historically Rafida Shia. They became Rafida because of Iran. The Houthis themselves, they went and studied the Rafida, whatever, madhab, whatever you want to call it, in Iran. They came back, they brought Rafidiyya to Yemen because the Shia in Yemen are historically Zaydi, not Rafida Shia. And for a good almost 50 years now, the Rafida madhab has been holding and spreading within Yemen through the help of Iranians. And that group, the Houthis, are a very small group. They're not big at all, but they're able to cause havoc because of Iranian support. And the elephant that's in this Middle East room happens to be Israel. Because they are the actual military power in the Middle East, and they have a little rinky-dink piece of land here, but they're causing problems in Jordan, they're causing problems in Syria, they're causing problems for Iran, they're causing problems for Saudi Arabia, and of course we know they're causing massive problems there in Palestine. Okay, and they get billions and billions of dollars every year for doing nothing except for showing up from the US. So if I had to predict what this deal means, Saudi Arabia is in a state of reaching peak oil. If you guys don't know what peak oil is, that essentially means that their oil is running out, which is why they are acting crazy right now. Okay? That is why they are losing their minds. All that oil money is going to disappear. So they are aggressively pushing for tourism and all these type of industries and trying to silence the voice of the Islamic presence there in order to build a tourist type country where people want to come and visit. Okay, and in doing so, you see what they have, all these very strange, weird things that they started doing. But it's not just them, it's also Pakistan. We talked about that yesterday. Okay, you also see this happening in Egypt. Egypt for a long time, they were the first kind of after the the assassination of Anwar Sadat. Okay, you see it happening in Tunisia. You see it happening in many Muslim countries are kind of taking these type of really right-leaning, hardcore nationalistic stances. Okay, so because they are reaching peak oil, Saudi Arabia, they spent a bunch of money with the US to get weapons, which is big business. Big business for US. It's like essentially writing blank checks indefinitely as long as they are fighting Houthis. You get it? So if peace ends up happening in Yemen, who do you think loses the most? Who loses the most if peace happens in Yemen? Somebody put in the chat, please. Just some. I want to make sure that we are on the same page here. Who loses the most if the fighting in Yemen stops? Thank you. Look at this. Look at this. Some intelligent black folks. Raytheon, Halliburton, USA. Thank you. Okay. They lose the most. That's why the big fat elephant was not in the room. Military industrial complex. Thank you. And that peace cannot be achieved without the cooperation of Iran. Do you see where I'm going with this? Which also leads us to another issue with this peace deal, because there's another fat elephant that is actually in the room. Remember, we talked about the Uyghurs and how these Muslim countries are signing off on the enslavement of Uyghurs in China. Remember we talked about that? And we said they're cool with it. They're okay. And why is that happening? Because China has a massive demographic catastrophe. It is a catastrophe that's going on in China. Their population is aging at an incredible rate because of that one-child policy that they had for a better part of a half century. And now the chickens have come home to roost because their population is all in retirement age. And the young generation, not only are they not having kids, they're not getting married, but they don't want to. And no matter how much money the Chinese government is throwing at their population to get married, incentives to have kids, then they raise their one-child policy to 2 and 3 children. You can have 3 children now. Chinese people are not looking to have kids in China. So their workforce is being rapidly depleted. So in come the Uyghurs. What are the Uyghurs? The Uyghurs are ethnically distinct from the Chinese living in China with a different ethnicity and a different language. Slave problem solved. But what is Islam? Islam teaches its followers to resist. So they have to wipe the Islam out of the Uyghurs and bring in Chinese nationalism. And these Middle East countries are signing off on that because they need their cheap Chinese products because peak oil is coming. Peak oil is coming. Their oil reserves are being depleted, and there's no way to replace them. Furthermore, ironically, Middle Eastern countries have a similar problem to China when it comes to demographics. And it's not because they have smaller families. No, it's not because of that. But it's because when oil was discovered in the Middle East and Arabs got very, very, very wealthy, one thing about Gulf Arabs is that they do not do the work of other folk. Let's put it like that, okay? Remember that book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman by John Perkins? We read that book here on this channel many times, okay? One of the stories that he tells in that book is a story about when he went to Saudi Arabia for the first time in 1960 something. I can't remember what it was. Either in the 60s or the 70s. Okay, late 60s, early 70s. And he goes to Saudi because he's an economic hitman. And he goes to Saudi Arabia. And he notices, like what most of us notice when we go to Saudi Arabia, and that's the Saudis don't pick up their garbage. Wallah, okay? The Saudis do not pick up their garbage. He noticed that way back then. And what they were doing for their garbage in those times was they were getting the shepherds and the goat herders to come and eat the garbage. That's how they used to clean it up. So he's asking his driver, he's like, what is this? Like, what's this? Because these things is very strange. And most of us, if you've been to Saudi Arabia, for example, you'll notice that Saudis, they don't pick up their garbage. They don't put away their garbage. They are waiting for the Bengali to come and pick up after them. Don't worry, there's a method to my madness. There's a reason why I'm telling this story. Okay, so just bear with me. Okay. So John Perkins is like, how come these guys are like, how come these goats are eating this garbage? And the Saudi person, because it was a Saudi taxi driver at those days, right? He was like, the Saudi driver was telling him, no self-respecting Saudi would ever do the job of a garbage man. And that's when the lights turned on in his head. John Perkins, is the mastermind behind why in Saudi Arabia, in the Middle East, you have Bengalis doing the work of the garbage men all over the Middle East. You have the Africans doing the work of the sewage collectors all over the Middle East. He's the mastermind behind that. He said, well, what we can do is that we can bring these Bangladeshis and pay them, pretty much pennies to come and pick up after the Saudis. And we can pay some Africans to come in and clean the sewage systems so that the Saudis don't have to do this work. And we can get the contracts to build the infrastructure to do it. Did y'all catch that? We can build the infrastructure. We can get these contracts so that we can hire foreigners, so that these Bengalis, and these Sri Lankans, and these Indians, and these Kenyans, Sudanese, Ethiopians can come and clean up after the garbage and the sewage of these Saudis. He wrote that in his book. And how does this relate to China and their demographic problem? The problem is Saudis have never, and they won't do this work. And they themselves are in a demographic crisis because of the way they treated the very same Africans that are doing the work for them. African countries now are preventing their people from going to the Middle East to work. They're preventing them. They're not, and Saudis, they love, particularly the Kenyan maids, these African maids, they love them. The Moroccan maids, these are the maids that they're graping, okay? They love these women. They love to grape them, okay? Because Saudis basically have committed all manner of crimes against Africans, African countries. The Philippines have already prevented their people. Indonesians. So now they're not facing a demographic crisis in the Middle East because of this, because of the treatment of foreigners in their countries. And this hyper-nationalism that's going on. So you have, the other thing that John Perkins said is that the reason why he chose Bangladesh and these countries like India, whatever, is because they have a large Muslim population. So they can hire Muslims, right? People who, are familiar with the religion, and it wouldn't be such a culture shock. So you have China with a demographic crisis. You have the Middle East countries, particularly Saudi Arabia, with a manpower crisis. They burnt all of their pipelines. Jazakallah khair, may Allah reward you and bless you and multiply it for you 100,000-fold. Ameen, 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 Sister Tika. Ameen. May Allah reward you and bless it for you. May everybody say ameen in the chat. Everybody say ameen in the chat. Then you have Iran, who is going through these protests that, again, are fueled by who? By what? By social media. Again, they're having their version of the Arab Spring with the hijab protest. You get me? And on top of that, you have this post-World War II, almost like a fake type country in Israel, whose only goal and purpose is to keep the Arabs in line and under manners. They don't do anything in the Middle East except for slowly steal Palestinian land. Otherwise, what comes out of Israel? Nothing comes out of Israel. So this is the situation now. And I want to show you something. Let me show y'all something. Look at here. Saudi Arabia rebrands as Ramadan approaches. Okay, this is a couple of hours ago. For those of you who don't know what this is, we're going to get into that in a minute. Okay, but as you can see, this is the new pet project of Mohammed bin Salman. The Cube, it's called. It's literally called the Cube. And as you can see, this cube has a striking resemblance to the Kaaba, correct? So, this is from DW. A commercial Kaaba-style building, new national holidays, and a strict new set of Ramadan rules point toward a national identity less anchored to religion. Ain't that what we were saying? Observers say Saudis won't likely resist the changes, and they won't. And they will not. Saudis do not fight against their rulers. The symbolism of the latest mega projects of Saudi Arabia, sought by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, is even grander than its dimensions. The new Muqab, which translates as the cube, the new cube, will be 400 meters, 1,320 feet high, 400 meters wide, and 400 meters long. The inside will hold entertainment options, hotels, and restaurants. Though the cost remains undisclosed, the construction is set to start soon, and completion is scheduled for 2030. This is what we've been saying. We've been saying that they are moving away from their Islamic identity to invite European dollars, because Muslims internationally are broke. Okay? They want white folks in their country. And in order to entice white folks to come to their country, they have to make sure that their borders aren't surrounded in war, like what's going on in Yemen. Do you see where I'm going with this? The cube resembles the most important landmark in Saudi Arabia, the Kaaba, Islam's most sacred site in Mecca. For those of you who know Quran, there's a surah in the Quran called Surah Al-Fil. Okay? It begins on what is it? What is it? Somebody tell me. What? What is it? How am I forgetting this surah? Anyways, the surah itself is talking about the Ashab al-Fil. Okay, the Ashab al-Fil. Okay, the people of the elephant. The story goes that before Islam, this region, the Arabs, were pretty much under the thumb of the Ethiopians, the Africans, the black Africans. Okay. And there was you can say almost like a ruler or a representative from Yemen. His name is Abraha al-Ashram. Okay. Who was you can say the Yemeni representative of the Ethiopian Empire. Okay, something like this. Powerful men. And he went to the Kaaba and he saw how the people had like a bustling whatchamacallit, like a bustling commerce going, because people from all over the world would meet up at the Kaaba, right? And it would be like a center of business. And the Kaaba is like that today, to be honest, right? It's been like that for as long as I can remember. Okay? So now he sees that and he says, you know what? I'm going to build my own Kaaba in Yemen. That's what he said at that time. What do we see here? What do we see here? So this Abraha al-Ashram, he tries to build his own version of Kaaba in Yemen, and he's trying to tell the people, go worship at this Kaaba in Yemen. And one of the Quraysh goes to his place where he's calling the Kaaba and urinates on it. He urinates on it. Abraha loses it. He loses it. Mind you, the Arabs, the desert Arabs at that time, are the descendants of slavery of our time. You get me? They were a lost people. They were like the foam of the sea. Anybody can come and just take advantage of them. Anybody can come and do whatever they wanted with them. You know what I mean? That's how they were, the Arabs of Jahiliyyah. They had all kinds of backwards practices, backwards language, much like black folk of today. No guidance, no manners, uncouth, unsavory, despised, just looked down upon, uncivilized. Abraha is about to take these Arabs out, okay? Not the Arabs, but the Kaaba anyways, and he can do that because much like how white folks can go and destroy any black town that they want with impunity, and nobody can do anything, nobody can say anything. It was like that. So he gets his army of elephants. He gets his army of elephants. And he goes to the Kaaba. What do the Arabs at that time do? Mind you, the Arabs now, they're under the thumb of these Africans, these Ethiopians. They're under their thumb. Black folk are ruling over them, okay? They are under their thumb. They're intimidated by them. He goes with an army of elephants to the Kaaba now to go with the intention of destroying it. And he goes, and the Arabs now, they leave the vicinity of the Kaaba. They leave that region, and they're hiding now because they don't want none of that smoke, and they're just watching to see Abraha, dismantle the Kaaba now. That's what they're waiting for. And then Allah sends these small birds, tiny, tiny birds, okay, holding these small stones. And they would pick up these stones, they fly over these elephants, and they just drop the stones. And these tiny, tiny stones end up turning into like miniature bombs, okay? They would enter the entire armies, their whole skin, everything, and just explode. And these poor, desert, destitute, ignorant Arabs are watching this with their own eyes. They're watching this happen with their own eyes. And that event is what caused the destruction of that Ethiopian empire. And Allah put it in the Quran. Here you have, in 2023, the new Abraha al-Ashram. Are y'all catching it? This is the new Abraha al-Ashram. Y'all catching it? He wants to build, he could have built any building that he wanted to. He's already building the line. But he decided, you know what? I'm going to build a bigger, better Kaaba. Exactly like Abraha al-Ashram. And the people will come to this Kaaba. And they will shop here and spend their money here instead of Mecca and Medina. He did, because we just started reading, right? Look. Muslims around the world will pray toward the Kaaba or travel during Hajj or Umrah pilgrimage during Ramadan. Bruno Schmidt-Furret, a political analyst at University of Cambridge, told DW that in the Saudi public sphere, religion is increasingly replaced by culture. Step by step, even the kuffar are telling you. He said the cube-shaped architecture was not unique to the Kaaba. The plan for the commercial Kaaba is not the only step toward national identity, no longer so tied to religion. According to royal decree by the Crown Prince's father, King Salman, in 2022, February 22nd was introduced as a holiday to celebrate the foundation of the first Saudi state. Up until then, the country's national day was celebrated on September 23rd. In February, Saudi Arabia celebrated its second founding day over a 4-day weekend with events and fireworks across the country. February 22nd is an arbitrary date that has no historical basis, and the intention behind it is a nationalist push to celebrate its own non-religious holidays, Schmidt-Ford said. When they ask you about your black nationalism, just show them this, please. Just show them this. Okay? Show them this. We ain't stopping. Okay? In 2022, the Crown Prince announced that the founding date of the country had been changed from 1744 to 1727. Really? But why? You want to know why? Look at here. Until then, its founding date had been linked to an agreement between 1744 between the ruling Saud family and the cleric Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab, who inspired the term Wahhabi Islam or Wahhabism, which has been dominant in Saudi Arabia since the mid-18th century. The Saud family had promised to fund Wahhabism and to grant the movement authority over education and public morality, and in turn, al-Wahhab promised to legitimize the rule of the Saudi family from a religious point of view. In 1727, though, Muhammad bin Saud rose to power as the founder of the first Saudi state after taking over the Emirates of Diriyah, which is in the north of Riyadh. The new interpretation of the state's birth clearly, are you catching this? Clearly downplays the role of religion. But wait, there's more. Schmidt first said, this month, a national flag was announced as a holiday for March 11th. The value of the national flag extends throughout the history of Saudi state since the founding in 1139 AH, the Islamic calendar, 1727 AD. Saudi Arabia's national news agency, SPA, reported highlighting the new founding year. Activism is criminalized. None of these introduced have led to major outcry from Saudi population, about 36 million, Smith-Ford said, and there were several explanations for the high level of acceptance. Tens of thousands of Saudis have studied abroad. How many times we talk about this? When I was in Saudi, I told those students, you watch. In 30 years, Saudi Arabia will be Bahrain. My mistake was saying 30 years. I should have said 10 or 15. That was my only mistake. Something I was saying in Saudi Arabia is being repeated by these kuffar in 2023. I said, because y'all are sending your people, your smartest people to study abroad, and they're coming back with the minds of your colonizers. And eventually these people, they're going to be in charge of the entire country, and they're going to get rid of Islam. You watch. You watch. Teacher, alcohol, no, teacher. No, no, man, no. You just watch. You wait and see. Not even, I left Saudi in 2016. Not even a whole 5 or 6 years later. Look at this. Look at this. Y'all are tripping. Anyways. Supported by the fully funded King Abdullah Scholarship, upon their return, they were anything but culturally overwhelmed by the country's modernization. Told you. Schmidt-Ford said, education and creation of jobs for the demographically young Saudi population has become a priority for the kingdom and is a part of the major economic overhaul dubbed Vision 2030, which was introduced by the Crown Prince in 2016. The wise set of reforms seek to diversify the Saudi economy from oil and modernize the. Didn't we talk about this already on this? Anyways, let's keep reading because I already mentioned this. Since then, women were granted more rights, cinemas have reopened, and the Commission for the Promotion of Virtue and Prevention of Vice, known as the Matawa Morality Police, was abolished. In turn, mixed audiences and dating in public have become possible, even normal. So those are y'all who still think, Saudi Arabia, the best Muslim country in the world, Bela Tawheed, and all kind of stuff. The best Muslim country in the world right now, it should be your house. It should be your house, because if you are depending on other Muslim countries to hold on to your Islam, you got another thing coming. Saudi Arabia was the last pure holdout. They were the last pure holdout, and they just said, forget this crap. The whole Muslim world hate us anyway. Let's make Saudi Arabia a country for white folk. You're running out of oil. The people here, they don't want to do the work of the Bengalis and the Africans. And we need to find a way to get money other than this oil, or else we're going to go back to eating dates and water and herding goats in a desert. And these kids ain't ready for that. We need to do something. That's what all of this is about. Are y'all hearing me? At the same time, while there were more social liberties, the state wanted to remain the only agent of change. Schmidt-Ford said, any form of political activism is discouraged, and a new language depicts the critics as traitors to the nation. There are enough examples of repercussions after a dissent for calls for reform. Look at here. Even just stating what is Islamically correct, not just in Saudi Arabia, but in most, if not probably all Muslim countries, if you state what is Islamically correct in a Muslim country, you will be jailed. Saudi Arabia is just the laziest country to do that. What has Egypt been doing since Hosni Mubarak? And even more so now under Sisi. What has Algeria been doing? What has Tunisia been doing? Pakistan, we talked about it yesterday, taking $200 million from the US to do what? Push LGBT. Y'all can't tell me nothing. Can't tell me nothing. There is a strong sentiment, anti-Islamic sentiment in actual Muslim countries. And the people themselves they have no problem with it. They don't have any issues with it. So all this talk about the leaders, it's not just the leaders. I'm sorry to tell you, it's not just the leaders. Shall we keep reading? Women's activist Lujana Halflud spent 3 years in prison after advocating for the right to drive in 2018 and remained there long after women were officially permitted to take a wheel. In 2022, a 34-year-old Salman Sahab was sentenced to 34 years in jail for liking human rights tweet on Twitter, and Noor bin Saeed al-Khatani received a sentence of 45 years in prison for the same reason. But I promise you, they would never, ever, ever put any white folks in jail for that. Here's the thing. In Saudis, when I was there, Saudis never went to jail. And especially Saudi women. They can get away with all manner of crimes against humanity, you name it. They could get away with it. The only crimes they were not allowed to commit were crimes against other Saudis. Okay? But they would be able to murder with impunity Bengalis, Africans, Indians, South Asians, grape with impunity all kinds of women, and do all kinds of things that, because Saudis don't get arrested. But don't ever, as a Saudi, do anything to embarrass the royal family, because you will go to jail for 45 years, whether you're a woman or not. And it's not just Saudi. Sorry to bust your bubble. It is, let's be real here. We mentioned all the countries that's been doing this for a long time. A long time. Sheikh bin Baz rahimahullah is dead. He can't save y'all anymore. Rahimahullah. Sheikh bin Baz. He dead. He can't intervene for y'all anymore. And the ulama that we have now are not even close to his level. And on top of that, the ulama that are remaining are aging and dying. They're dying out, and nobody's going to replace them. Nobody going to replace them. So let's keep reading, shall we? This week, Saudi Islamic Affairs Ministry announced major change rules for Ramadan, which starts on March 22nd. So you want to hear this? You want to know the changes? Here they are. No loudspeakers for the month of Ramadan in Saudi Arabia. No broadcast of prayers in Saudi Arabia. No itikaf without ID. Even here in Canada. If you want to make itikaf in a masjid, you can just go to the masjid and make itikaf. Ain't nobody going to bother you. But you know what they're trying to do, right? It's because poor Muslims, they are going to worship Allah, but they can't necessarily do so with the proper paperwork. They are trying to get the Africans and the Yemenis and the South Asians out the country. You see how that works? And then they're going to hide behind, well, you don't have the proper paperwork. Keep prayer short. You got to be kidding me. Keep prayer short. We come a long way from Umar bin Khattab, radiyallahu anhu. We come a long way from that when he started making the Qiyam al-Layl 20 raka'at. We come a long, long way. Here come Muhammad bin Salman talking about keep the prayer short. Prayer short, concerts long, okay? That's and again, it's not to pick on Saudi Arabia. Really, it's not really about Saudi Arabia. Specifically, it's about this trend that all of them are going through. And we had high hopes for Saudi Arabia because they were the last holdout. But what we have seen from the Muslims was an insane amount of hate for the last holdout. An insane amount of ridiculous hate. If you hated Saudi when it was good, what about now? What about now? No collecting donations. Can you imagine in Ramadan you can't collect donations? No kids in a mosque for prayers. Can you imagine? No iftar. Not even in Canada. Not even in Canada. Not even in America. Not even in Britain. Do these kuffar governments tell you cannot have iftar inside the mosque? Or you can't collect donations? Are y'all catching all this? So Bilal, you said that you was going to tie this with black people. Bilal, you said you were going to tie all of this with black people. Okay, we understand now. We understand that Saudi Arabia and Iran have a deal now. They have a peace deal. We understand. We understand that this peace deal is somehow tied to the regional instability. And we understand now that Saudi Arabia, they have reached peak oil. So this is why they're aggressively trying to diversify. And they're also trying to aggressively move away from their Islamic identity and have a nationalist identity. And that is their strategy for stability. Yeah, they don't care what anybody else thinks. They're just doing it. Okay. Here's the thing. You are talking about atheist China who is enslaving an entire ethnic group who happen to be Muslim, and other Muslim countries saying, yeah, just keep those cheap Chinese products coming. Don't care who you enslave. As long as it's not us, no problem. We'll back you. And then you have Iran, Rafida Shia Iran, who always meddling with Saudi Arabia, all the time, who are largely behind this instability in Yemen. And now they're trying to backtrack. And Saudi Arabia, who is tired, probably sick and tired of spending all this money on weapons because they're trying to build their country for white people to go into the new cube. so they can spend their white folks' money. Okay. You mean to tell me that these characters can unite on big projects, on, mind you, not on little rinky-dinky stuff, big problems, projects, and even outwardly call it nationalistic? They can unite on that, but y'all black folks out here arguing about what again? What are y'all arguing about again? Big arguments y'all are having. You're about to be locked out of all Western economies. Your schools, all schools in black neighborhoods are about this close to being permanently shut down. Okay? You are not getting no reparations at all. At all. And as a matter of fact, if you plan on making Hajj or Umrah, you best to have your paperwork in order, because you can't even stay in a mosque for Hajj and Umrah anymore. You can't do it. If them folks can swallow their differences, and they have an incredible differences, then what's wrong with y'all Negroes? The problems that you got is way bigger. Way bigger. This right here is sending a massive message to the world in general. I'm pretty sure the US right now is watching what's going on and like, holy crap. Our plots now are just not having the same effect. We talked about Kanye West a couple of weeks ago and how Adidas now has to backtrack and beg Kanye to come and save them. Because since they got rid of Kanye, their stock has been dropping in free fall like a rock off a building. And they don't know what to do with 1.2 billion worth of product of Kanye's product that they said they were cutting ties with him. So now they're backtracking because buck breaking don't work like it used to. There needs to be a divide, a similar type of divide within the black community. Those people who are destroying themselves need to be completely and totally abandoned. And those people who are willing to do the work need to do the work. But we understand that we need to do the work. So what is really preventing us from doing the work except for ourselves? The whole world right now is distracted. Everybody distracted. Everybody is out for self-preservation. And what are black folks doing? ألم ترى كيف فعل ربك بأصحاب الفيل. I don't know why the ayah came into my head right now, bro. Before when I was trying to get it, My whole mind was like mush and jumbled up. Now I'm not even thinking about it. Just come like this. Right? Have you not seen what your Lord has done to the people of the element? We were talking about that earlier, right? How this is these are the modern day people of the elephant. Except there's a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said that the Kaaba will be destroyed. And it will be destroyed by an Abyssinian having two small shanks. So we expect this to happen. We know this is going to happen. So what are y'all doing? Like, what are y'all really doing? Like, how are we? The time for talking about making moves is long gone. And the time for actually making moves is here. It is actually right now. America does not have the resources or the manpower to deal with the unity between China, Iran, and Saudi Arabia. They ain't got the time for that. Their strategy for black folk is to make sure that they do not get anything economically. That's their only strategy. Meanwhile, the southern states are intentionally reintroducing Jim Crow laws to retain power in the South. And where are the Muslims while all of this is going on? This is the time for dawah and unity and getting our own. The time is now. If I had to guess, I would say we have maybe a couple of years left before it is it is just like no coming back, point of no return. All these countries are seeing the writing on the wall, and that's why they're acting the way that they're acting. That's why in Tunisia you can have a Tunisian president talking about we are being replaced by black Africans in Africa. Not that they're being replaced by black Africans, but they are trying to hold on to their colonizing relationship. That's what that's about. The black sub-Saharan Africans are trying to replace our Islamic Arab identity. Say what? Say what? But anyways, family, I'd like to say Jazakallah khair. Thanks for everybody to coming out tonight. I want to thank Sister Tika again. May Allah reward you and bless you and multiply it for you 100,000 fold. Ameen, ameen, ameen. And this stuff right here that's going on right now is so important. It has implications for all of us. You have to understand that Middle East is reaching peak oil, which means that the demand for when oil runs out, a lot of people are going to be living in cold, especially black people, right? If you don't learn these skills related to trades and things of this nature, if you don't have a security within your communities, if you don't have good relations, if you don't have, a type of mentality where protection of the group trumps everything, it trumps your own opinions, and that protection must be done with seeking Allah's protection, putting our feelings aside and whatnot. If you don't have that mentality, then, we will be enslaved again, because that is also coming. Slavery is already in the States. That's another topic that we can discuss. Slavery. No, and I'm not talking about, maybe the work, whatever with them. No, I'm talking about literal slavery. They have child labor all over the U.S., forcing these migrant children to work jobs of adults. And that's another topic for another day. But you are being phased out of any type of workforce, Black people. And all you can do is argue on the internet about how Black women are this. Like this brother the other day posted, and wallahi, he posted this, Facebook things. I'm going to do a series called Facebook things. Wallahi, he said this in public, that after the jinn and the kuffar, Black women are the worst of creation. Wallahi, he posted that. These are the people that are going to get us ahead in life. These people, these folks, these are the people that are concerned about our people. Sister the other day on Facebook things again. Okay. She posted herself in a strip club, Muslim, dancing in her thong and her bra. She posted it on Facebook. And she says, yes, I'm a Muslim and I know my 6 pillars. My 6 pillars in my Islam. I know I'm doing wrong, but I got 2 daughters and I'm a good mom. And some of y'all are doing worse than me. These people, these are the people that are going to get us out. And the ironic thing is that if I had to see that with my own eyes, if I have people like that around me, that's a problem with me too. That's a problem with me too. Facebook things. Another one. I'm gonna do a series called Facebook things. What y'all think about that? Another one. Sister posts serious offers only. 31-year-old sister with 6 kids looking for a man making $4,000 a month and no kids, or at least having kids from one woman. These are the people that are going to help us through this. These people. We need to be serious, man. These are serious times, and it requires serious action from serious people. We ain't got no time to play around. This is some serious times. But anyways, Jazakumullah khair. May Allah reward you and bless you all. Subhanakallah bihamdik. Wa shadu an la ilaha illa ant. Wa astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Wa assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We are the Muslim wing of the Black grassroots. Unapologetic, strong, uncompromising voices that have been in the faces of the enemy and those who tap dance for them. The Feachaz is proud to present the archives exclusively on Patreon.